If you are the C player, how can you be the expert in the field when other people don't want to be C players? They want to be A players. It's Life by Maggie. I'm quitting medicine. Here's the full story.
This is not clickbait. However long this video ends up being, at the end of it, I'm not going to be like, so in conclusion, I'm actually just going to take a gap year and apply next year for residency. Like,
we've seen some of those, right?
I'm staying in med school.
Did I just get clickbaited on this video? What?
Hey, I'm Maggie, fourth year medical student at the University of Colorado. Basically, the reason I'm not applying to residency is because I started a business. I started this whole It's Life by Maggie business the summer before I basically started medical school, or like actually It's Life by Maggie started when I was sitting in the ambulance and I came across by Sophia Lee's income report of how she made $12,000 from her blog in like June of 2020 or something. Because she now has 4 seven-figure businesses that all started from the blog, she no longer shares detailed income reports because she makes millions and because she has 4 separate businesses. But in 2020, I stumbled upon that like one income report and I was like, whoa.
When a lot of people see the successful bloggers or influencers, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and some of them publish their income reports, I think it gives the impression to those who are not in the business that it's very easy, you can do it too, which is great to get people motivated to try doing that thing that they wanted to always try. But it often gives false hope as well, because there's a lot of uncertainty. It's very unlikely to be steady income unless you do a great job of maintaining your relevance and your traffic for years and years on end. And even the products, you have to have a really solid product, otherwise you're gonna tarnish your reputation and no one's gonna buy anything from you. So it has pros and cons, don't get me wrong. With Med School Insiders, the YouTube channel, and with this YouTube channel, these both help, both Med School Insiders, the website, as well as MEM. My 2 businesses focused on helping people get through the medical training process, whether they're pre-meds or med students and so on. But I think it's very easy for those on the outside to think it's really easy and say, hey, anyone can do this, and which is true, anyone can do it, but it's not a surefire thing. And the failure rate is a lot higher than you might actually think.
I took the MCAT, and then after that, I really dove into creating my website, itslifebymaggie.com. So a little bit fast forward, I started a YouTube shortly after that, and then an Instagram shortly after that. And the blog kind of never really became a blog that earns income. Like, that's still something we're finally tackling and getting closer to that goal. But for the first like 3 years of my business, the blog was never actually never became an income driver. But my Instagram and YouTube, I had a couple successful YouTube videos. So I stuck with it really well the first year of med school, where I did vlogs of med school life. And then the Instagram, that's kind of the thing that has really like grown my business. So it started with a blog because of that income report, and that's what Sophia Lee did.
One concern I have is if you start off as a vlogger documenting your journey through med school, then you're going to have a lot of people at that stage with you that are either same year, maybe a couple years behind you, and they look up to you and they're going to follow you throughout that journey. But then when you leave medicine, some of them will stick around, but how do you capture new viewers, a new audience? Because as those people go through the process, graduate, become attending physicians, other new people coming in, they don't see you as being in their same shoes. They don't see you as relatable, right? So with my businesses, it was less about vlogging. I guess I did some kind of lifestyle-ish videos, more experimentation and more fun than anything. It's always been more focused on how to be a better student, how to be a better med school applicant, how to be a better medical student and a residency applicant, and so on. And that makes sense given my strengths and my story to say, hey, I can help you do X, Y, and Z based on my results of A, B, and C. And then from there, you can grow your businesses and improve the products and et cetera, et cetera. But having a more evergreen kind of audience and brand that's not just about you and your stage in training is going to give you more longevity in your business.
That's where it started, income report from Sophia Lee. That was the summer. So that fall, I was actually like, there's not enough pre-meds in the world. I had like maybe a few hundred or like 1,000 pre-med or like followers on my Instagram. And I was like, it's never going to grow. Like, I just like basically quit because I was like, I'm never going to grow, which is so dumb looking back.
Yeah, it's a game of patience. You got to really be at it consistently for months and months, if not years.
Okay, I started growing my Instagram the year before, like while I was applying, like during the application cycle, just sharing everything. And then I learned about this whole like passive income with like creating online courses, and
Passive income is so overhyped.
was like creating a brand new module for my course Road to Acceptance. So I created it over the span of maybe like 2-ish months. So I beta launched it like in the spring or something, created it over the summer, and then that was finished and completed. And then I started medical school.
It's a good strategy. We do that with our courses too. We give early access, which says, hey, if you join now, the course is not done. We've recorded everything, but editing takes a long time for the quality of courses that we're trying to put out. So we say, hey, you join, there's only a couple sections out of 10 sections. We only have 3, 4 right now, but you come in at a discount and then you lock in that price. And then as we add more, we start raising the price. It's a good tactic, actually. It's a win-win for both parties.
So during medical school, I continued to I brought this other course. Actually, that was my third course on creating courses. The first one was great, and that's like the reason I knew how to do that and create it, and it helped me create really good support resources and stuff. The second course I bought, I had learned about having an evergreen course and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, it was in total $20,000, and I went into over $20,000 of credit card debt. I have now paid that off. During first year of med school, I got the third course, the Better Course, Digital Course Academy from Amy Porterfield. Her teaching was make your free content so good. They're wow, I can't imagine what the paid is. And this second course lady, she's don't give them too much info in the free content because you want them to buy your paid content. And so I felt so cringe about the workshop that I created through her course. And after 1 week of it being live, I shut it down. I was I hate this. I hate this lady for taking all my money.
I am definitely of the camp that you should provide as much value as you can for free. And that's why Med School Insiders grew as quickly as it did. And those that like your content and your philosophy, they'll want a more personalized touch with you. And that's where your courses and your services come in. And then you can dive deeper with that person one-on-one or in a small group setting, because obviously on YouTube, you can't customize each video for each viewer.
So I was in a ton of debt, but somehow I guess paid $2,000. Well, maybe I wasn't in a lot of debt yet because it was monthly payments for that second course. I actually did have the money to pay the $2,000 for DCA, and then created this epic workshop that I'm so proud of and has basically been selling my course on autopilot since my first year of med school. Next category, how I earned income. The main way, 90% of my income is from Road to Acceptance, which is a $500 course, $597. And yeah, I send traffic to the registration page of that free workshop. And then I give them 45 minutes of free, super valuable, super proud of all that free content. It's amazing free workshop for 45 minutes. And then at the end, I offer they can enroll in my course. So that's how I make income. And that's the main income driver. But the second big chunk of my income is actually through brand deals. So I don't consider myself an influencer whatsoever because my main way of making money is through online courses, not brand deals.
I mean, I feel a lot of that is semantics, right? Once you have a substantial following and you're using that to drive any kind of business, whether it's sponsorships or selling your own product, you're an influencer. I mean, it doesn't really matter if it's brand deals and sponsorships versus your own product. You're still an influencer.
So for example, in 2023, I think I made $190,000 if I remember correctly. And 68,000 of that was from brand deals. And outside of that 68,000, I'm sure 98 to 99% was Road to Acceptance sales. So I'm actually trying to diversify in my income because that's how much I make from just Road to Acceptance. The problem is that course is $597. I'm fine with it being at $500 or full price $597. Could I charge $2,000, $3,000 for it? Sure. Literally I know of one other person in my space that does, but I personally will not. And it's not even about oh, but there's so many people who wouldn't be able to afford that, obviously. But it's okay, there's a lot of people who could afford that, but I do not care. I just don't think that it should cost thousands of dollars to get help to apply to medical school. I didn't have that money. I don't care if other people do. If they have the money to charge $3,000 or pay $3,000, then they can get one-on-one support. Or they can still buy Road to Acceptance, only $500. I don't care if they have more to spend. It just gives me the ick to ever charge thousands of dollars if it's anything related to pre-meds.
Interesting. So I disagree, and I have a few thoughts here. I think that the reason why she doesn't charge more for her course is because every course has actually a sweet spot. If you charge too much, you get fewer customers, and even though you're making more per customer, your revenue drops. If you charge too little, then you're leaving money on the table because while many people are buying it, you could have charged them more. So there is some business strategy here, and I don't really buy that reason. Buying a passive course that you just watch videos on your own for thousands of dollars is quite uncommon and is going to be a hard sell. Now, at Med School Insiders, we do offer services one-on-one where you're working with an actual physician with admissions committee experience, and those packages can range depending on what you're getting. And some of them are several thousands of dollars, but the students and the families find it worth it to have that expert level of guidance one-on-one over months, over actually more than a year, and to increase their odds of getting into med school and very frequently getting into a better med school. And it oftentimes pays for itself because then they get scholarship, because their applications are far more competitive, and so on and so forth. So the reason here to write off the entire market, I'm not really buying that. I think that she just realizes that you're not going to have a passive video, like self-paced course for thousands of dollars. The number of sales would plummet because a lot of people just won't find value in that unless you really brought way more than the average self-paced course. For our Ultimate Resource course, as an example, it is self-paced, but we have a ton of resources. We have a Discord group, et cetera, to provide more value. And even that is less than $597. I think it's around $300 or $400 actually.
But with my income goals that I'll share at the end, a $500 course isn't really how you get to $1 million business. So that's my current dilemma is like, okay, I like 7 figures is like the whole point of quitting medicine. I'm going to have a 7-figure business. So ideally, like a way that a lot of people get there is by having high ticket offers where they charge $2,000 or $5,000. So it's in the back of my mind to like maybe switch to a different niche.
I can already see the comments now. There's probably a lot of people who are not going to like her motivations for entering medical school, for entering medicine, because it sounds like she already had a plan to create courses before she even entered med school, right? She released her first one before starting med school. But more thoughts on that soon.
Obviously been very successful growing my social media, or there's a lot of like specific things in business. Like I'm obsessed with analytics and like specific things I'm really good at within my business that I could like switch to that niche. But I've told myself that I'm not really going to do that until I've like hit some major milestones with my current business, because shiny object syndrome is like the number one way to not have a successful business at all, or like never hit your goals. So I'm trying to stay away with that.
Yeah, you want to stay focused. I say, as I have a car YouTube channel and a personal YouTube channel and a Med School Insiders business and MEM business, don't worry, the irony is not lost on me.
When/how I came to the decision. Let's take it to January of 2024, because that's when I was between orthopedic surgery and taking a gap year to do research for a year to build my application to be able to apply to ortho or OB, because I loved OB. That was like the best and still love it. Or wait, in January, and then like the third option was like family medicine, just to be board certified, and it's the shortest, versus maybe I don't do medicine at all. Yeah, I was thinking that. So I guess there's 4 things. It was like ortho, OB. No, I don't think OB was the thing. Let's say ortho, fam med, nothing.
All very different specialties, by the way. And what you have to give her credit for is how unfiltered and honest and authentic she's being. And I love that. That is quite refreshing, which is another point that I'll circle back to in a little bit.
I applied for a research year. There's this really cool one in Vail that I was super excited for. It's something like they order joints, like an ankle. They literally like order a cadaver ankle. They put it on a robot and they have it run a marathon, and then they like do surgery on it, and they do something with like an ACL repair or something. Okay. And I was like, that's so cool. And I like wanted it. I applied. But then I also had this second research year opportunity that was like more on like in Denver Health Aurora campus area. And so basically I got so hooked on that one that I didn't get the Vail research year, but they're like, all right, when can you start this other one? And I was like, I don't want to do that one. I only wanted to do the Vail one. Like I said from the beginning, I have a very obsessive personality. If I want something, I will do it. Like no questions asked. And there will be no looking back, like, let's go, it's go time. But that's for things I'm like super passionate about. So clearly I wasn't passionate enough about ortho to do the second like best research option. I just wanted to do this cool sounding, like who doesn't want to go to Vail and like do surgeries on cadavers with, and like learn ortho surgeries, like, so clearly it wasn't about ortho.
It's really important to be honest with your motivations on doing certain things, because that's going to guide you to a position where you're going to be much happier versus doing things that you think you should do or that seem cool.
So basically when I didn't get that research year, a lot kind of changed. So then I was like, all right, it's literally family medicine, or I'm not going to apply to any specialty. The point is I wanted to do surgery. Like I came to med school because I wanted to do surgery. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon, have a private practice, and then teach women in medicine, like other orthopedic women surgeons how to start a private practice from scratch. That was going to be my high ticket offer when I like entered med school. I was already planning this all out.
Dude, that's impressive. Already planning that from that early stage is really, I think it was very uncommon to see that back when I was applying to med school, because social media was not what it is today. I applied to med school in 2012. No, I applied to med school in 2011. I graduated college in 2012 and started med school in 2012. And yeah, social media wasn't what it is today. So my idea throughout med school was like, yeah, I'm going to be a gastroenterologist. And then that changed to plastic surgeon. And the whole business idea was only ever medical devices when I was in med school until the end. And then I was like, well, Med School Insiders, I see this opening in the market, because at the time, the study advice that was on YouTube, there weren't many other influencers, but I didn't agree with that advice. And I said, hey, I actually think I can provide value and help a lot of people by sharing my story, because I also had trials and tribulations with adopting better study strategies, more effective, more efficient. Yeah, and anyways, it's just really cool to see that, I think largely because of the internet, whether it's social media or just reading more things and being exposed to various other types of entrepreneurship that are now available with the internet, people are having these ideas earlier on. This now opens up the whole discussion, though, about ethics, morality, about entering medical school if you don't plan on practicing. But it sounds like she was planning on practicing. She wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon and then have a business side hustle, right? I already know that a lot of people are going to be judgmental of that. But again, kudos for being honest. And this is the time that we live in today. And there are some additional considerations that we'll get to. But again, the honesty is very refreshing.
But during med school, I really didn't apply myself in the first place to be competitive for ortho. I was always like, yeah, I should do research if I end up picking a competitive specialty. But I was always saying I hope I don't want a competitive specialty. The whole time I was doing rotations, I was like, please something stick out to me so I don't want to do ortho. So I don't know why I had that super weird mindset. With my obsessive personality.
Dude, such an important part of med school. So a lot of people think once you're in med school that the experience is the same. But I'll tell you from my own class and my own classmates and friends, there was a spectrum of how hardcore you had to be and how much balance you had in your life. So if you're just an intrinsically hardcore person, then you're going to try really hard no matter what specialty you're going into. And if you're going into something that is competitive, derm, plastics being really up there, then you're going to have to try really hard. And if you also aren't going into something very competitive, then you probably are going to have a much more balanced approach to med school. And there's no right or wrong here. There are relative pros and cons. Because again, by applying yourself, by achieving certain types of results, you can then teach other people. It's only when I look back in hindsight that I'm like, oh, I'm actually glad I applied to something competitive and I pushed myself, and I probably would have done that regardless, but I pushed myself even harder, yada, yada, yada. Because that then builds the experiences and the skill set that allows you to teach other people in a way that other people that haven't achieved those same results wouldn't be able to. I have a buddy who went into family medicine, and amazing lifestyle during med school, amazing lifestyle now, definitely not a type A kind of person, and super fit, has a cool life, but he's not going to try to tell you how to be a great med student or how to get into a great med school or residency, because he acknowledges that wasn't his focus. He didn't develop that skill set. He would say, hey, there are other people that are more specialized in this. I can teach you how to be kick-ass in spirituality and sports medicine and whatever it is, but not that.
If I was obsessed with being a physician in a certain specialty, I would have gotten research freshman year, first year of med school. But the fact that I didn't, I think that's a big, honestly, telling sign that there's some underlying passion.
Yeah, research is a really important way to stand out, especially if you want to either go to a competitive specialty or make up for something that is lackluster in an application, or if you just want to be a more competitive candidate, right? So the number of average research items for almost every specialty in the most recent 2024 NRMP charting outcomes update has gone up by a substantial number. I think ortho was 37. Plastics is mid to high 20s or maybe low 30s. It's just insane. Back when I applied, the numbers were lower, but still, at least 1 to 2 dozen, depending on the specialty. And it's very common for med students to do research during the summer between first and second year, because that is considered the last summer of your life, because second, third, fourth year are all back to back to back. And yes, we do have a research course on Med School Insiders about how to do so and crank out a ton of pubs.
I had 2 calls with like a physician slash professor at our school who's like, I love talking to students who are undecided. So like, let me know if you want to hop on a call. So I like told her everything. We also had a call with my like business elective or health leadership elective. And there's this one person who was super helpful. I asked to talk to him, got on the phone with him, and I laid it all out for him. And then we had this like other workshop, and there was this really nice physician, and I kept bringing up, like, because we were talking about like death and dying and like what our values are. And I kept bringing up, I was like, well, there's a 50% chance I'm not going to residency because I like really value like pursuing what you're most passionate about. And I don't want to have any regrets. And I'm fine doing the thing that's like not the norm. So at the end, he's like, what is it about this? So anyway, I laid it all out for him. So I talked to 3+ people like from my school and told them all of the things about like, should I do family medicine just to get board certified? Like, I don't really have any interest. Like,
I have come across a handful of people in the last few years. I sometimes do one-on-one calls for this kind of thing, actually, which is, hey, should I go to med school? Hey, should I go to residency? Things like that. Since I've done this non-traditional path and I've been very open about it, people want to hear my thoughts on their situation. And it feels like it's relatively common now where people want to enter medical school or residency without the intent to actually practice clinical medicine. That's one camp. And then there's another camp of people not actually being passionate about medicine. And then they ask, should they do it or should they not? And what are the alternatives? I guess that's a different discussion. But for those who don't want to actually practice clinical medicine, it does feel like a very large opportunity cost to go down this path for what I would argue is relatively little upside. Because let's say you want to get involved with some med tech device or biomedical engineering and things like that. There are obviously other ways to do so. And if you know at the end of the day, you're not going to be practicing, you're going to approach things very differently. And the experience will also feel very different. It's not going to be as relevant, direct, as meaningful, right? So it might feel like more of a struggle. But let's say with Maggie, you know that you're not going to be practicing clinical medicine. You're not going to push yourself as hard in med school. So if she wants to help people get into med school, that's one thing. But if she wants to expand it, then say, hey, I can help you excel in med school. She now hasn't pushed herself to that point. She doesn't have that level of expertise in that domain now.
I would enjoy a family medicine residency, but I don't want to be a family medicine doctor. There's a big difference. When you're a student and a learner, things are so fun, but like, obviously, like, I want to be an entrepreneur and like call the shots, and like, I have no interest in being employed by anyone. Like, I will forever be, for the rest of my life, be my own boss. And so, but also I don't want to go to residency and right off the bat start this whole private practice. Like, I already have a business, like that business like desire is satisfied. So like the whole private practice thing is now something I don't want to do.
It's so cool that she knew that so early on, because I only knew that much later. It is a very specific personality type. A lot of people would be absolutely miserable being entrepreneurs because there is so much pressure and stress and self-directed action and no boundaries or structure to push you in a certain direction. And you find people that just watch Netflix and play video games and end up having to go back to work. But what she was saying about things, like, they're exciting when you're a med student. Keep in mind that when you do the same thing for the 100th time, it's not going to be as exciting. And I talk about that with plastic surgery, how I used to, as a med student, I obsessed about being the best at suturing. I read a fucking book on it. I practiced at home all the time. I took a lot of pride in it. And I would get compliments from the program director, who was very hard to impress, by the way, at a very prestigious West Coast university, or West Coast program, I should say, and a few other ways. And I took pride in it. I was like, yeah, I want to be the best operating third-year med student or fourth-year med student or PGY1, hands down. And the flip side to that was suturing became pretty easy for me. I got proficient because I spent a lot of time and practice doing so. And then I remember that it felt routine. It no longer felt as fun. I was like, oh my God, I guess this is going to happen for all parts of surgery, huh? And it was when I was helping my chief resident with half of a blepharoplasty in residency that when I was suturing the eyelid skin and I had my loops for the first time, it was maybe like 6-0, some really thin suture, really hard to see. I got that rush again. And it's because there was this new challenge. But after 10, 20, 30, 40 blephs, that would probably feel routine too. And I was like, oh, interesting. I guess I really do prioritize the variety, the excitement, the constant new challenges, rather than doing a certain set of skills and honing it and then it not feeling as exciting anymore. But that's just me, right? I prioritize the variety and novelty and excitement with new experiences.
So when I was thinking of family medicine or nothing, those were the things I was thinking about. Like, okay, like looking up residency schedules, would I like this? Should I do it? Like, just to get it out of the way. It's only 3 years. Like, then I'll be board certified. But then like, I'll be board certified, but I don't want to have a job. So like,
Yeah, not worth it.
why would I do those 3 years? Like if I don't plan to be employed. So then I was like looking up jobs. I was looking up jobs for like ER physician.
And then the whole discussion of, hey, we do have a physician shortage, and taking a residency spot, taking a med school spot is something that people overstate the importance of, given that the bottleneck is residency. But taking a residency spot and then not planning to practice, that does seem a bit suboptimal for the country, right?
Literally just reading the descriptions and being like, could I picture wanting to do this when I graduate residency? And like, no. First off, I tried to go down, well, okay, maybe I know that I hate the 8 to 5 because I did that as a lab tech after I graduated undergrad. And that was soul sucking. I think it's the worst thing on this entire planet to have the Sunday scaries every Sunday night. And then Monday morning, you're dreading your life when you drive to work. And then the whole time you're at work, you're looking at the clock and you're like, oh my gosh, is it 4 p.m.? And then it's 4 p.m. And then you live your life for a few hours. And then you wake up and you do it again. And then Friday comes and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a weekend. I can like actually have fun and enjoy my life. But then Sunday comes and then see where I'm going?
I never held a regular 8 to 5 in my life. I did work in high school as a library aide, but that obviously wasn't 8 to 5. I was a high school student. And I've had, research positions that were paid in college and things like that. But you do hope in medicine, once you choose a specialty, it's not going to be like that. I would hope that most pre-meds that have experience being lab techs would be so much happier being doctors in whatever specialty they choose rather than a lab tech. And that's not to say that lab tech isn't a fine job, right? But if you're going to medicine and you want that kind of challenge, it's obviously completely different roles, responsibilities, lifestyle, etc. And if you don't fall in love with anything at the beginning, it's okay. You have so much more exposure during your third year. And if you still don't fall in love with anything, then many people default to internal medicine. And I've seen with some friends that passion actually builds once they're in internal medicine and they grow to enjoy it more than they did during their third year med school rotations.
I was like, okay, well, let's explore emergency medicine because I know that they have like the shift work where you can do like 4 shifts in a row or something and then be off for a long time, or you can do locums tenens.
Emergency medicine, anesthesiology, radiology seem to be 3 specialties that are more commonly chosen by those who have entrepreneurial pursuits that still want to practice medicine because it gives you more flexibility and you're not taking work home with you.
So I was looking at locum tenens job. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Or like just like very like more choppy shift work for emergency medicine like that. And when I was reading the descriptions, like for example, I saw like, oh, you have to do 13 shifts a month. Like that's your minimum. And it's like, okay, well, again, like month to month, I have this minimum requirement. Like, so yes, it's more flexible, but I don't want somebody telling me to work 13 shifts a month. I want to work the exact number of shifts that I feel like working month to month. And like, sure, is there a way to do that? Yes. But like going through residency with the goal of working that physician job the least amount and trying to go again, like, I don't know. Even if there is a way to, but then like if you don't work often enough, then are you really that good of a doctor? Like you need to work enough to be like, I want to be a good doctor. I want to have those skills. Like if you don't practice it, if you don't use it, you lose it.
I had an experience where when I first got diagnosed with IBD, in inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, back in college, I went to a doctor who was widely respected, top of the field, did a lot of research, but he still saw patients on the side. Although I think it was probably at least 60 to 70% research and the remaining was administrative stuff and clinical. And I remember both my mom and I were surprised that we didn't feel like he was a good doctor. He, not just bedside manner, but even now that I know much more about what makes a good versus bad clinician, even the discussion about risk assessment, it was just really poorly done. He essentially suggested I did this new therapy that had like a 1 to 2% risk of lymphoma for young men like me, but it was highly effective at maintaining remission. And this was in the first year. I was literally 18 years old. And it was so scary. And both my mom and I were disappointed. And it was very expensive too. It was, I don't know. So yeah, you don't want to be a bad doctor. You want to be the best doctor you can be, for sure. Take pride in your work.
Yeah, just no. I don't want to be employed. I don't want to be trying. I don't want to go to residency and then like just to be board certified and like literally never plan to use it. I don't want to become an emergency medicine physician and just see how little I can work because I want this flexible lifestyle. Like, so I think in January that those thoughts started, but I really like made the official decision, I think, when I was in Washington, and we were there like May and June, I think. So around May and June 2024. is when like those 5 to 6 months I was like back and forth, and I was like, maybe, I was like, yeah, family med, sports med, I'll like that. And then the Indeed thing, I'm like, no. So back and forth until May, June. At some point when we were in Washington for those 2 months, I was like, you know what? No, I'm doing none of it. I'm doing none of it. I am not applying. I'm not at all. Why? Why would I do this?
Kudos. A lot of people, I know that the comments, I haven't seen the comments yet, but I know that there's going to be some amount of virtue signaling and judgment on her decision, but she ended up not taking a position in residency and taking up a med school seat. And when she went into med school, she still thought she was going to be practicing, so you can't blame her for taking a med school seat, right? And even if you were going to blame her for that, remember that the bottleneck is residency anyways.
First, when I made my vision board, I hadn't really decided a specialty. There was still nothing like super clear to me. And yeah, that's why I put those things on my vision board. And then what's another really good one? Search for soul in everything. So that was like a reminder to be like, we're not going for I like this. Like, yeah, I would like family med residency. We're going for like what lights my soul on fire.
I remember from a Tim Ferriss podcast, one of his guests said, maybe it was Derek Sivers. I think it was Derek Sivers. If it's not a fuck yes, it's a no.
And the things that bring me joy and the things I'm always trying to do more of are my business. So all those together, I decided there's like, at some point, I stopped going back and forth around May, June, and I was like, no more back and forth. I'm not applying to residency. And all I told was like my family and George. And then in September, we had these 2 weeks where they put us all on campus, and I hadn't seen any classmates. I hadn't told any of my med school. What am I supposed to send an email? Like, hey, I'm not applying to residency. Just so you know. Like, I don't know if you care. I don't know. What was I supposed to do after that? So in September though, that's when ERAS applications were due, like at that end of the 2 weeks. That's why they brought us all back on campus.
ERAS is the residency application that you submit in mid-September.
Going to campus for those 2 weeks, and like basically like the cat became out of the bag. Like that's when I told everyone, like Instagram, I shared all my stories. I told all my classmates that I interacted with. I told my school, because they're like, hello, you haven't used this token for ERAS and why? And I didn't know what a token was, but I was like, oh crap, here it is. This is where we tell them. And I was scared, and I don't know why, but I just was.
You apply in September of your 4th year, but generally at the end of your 3rd year to early 4th year, you're also applying for away rotations and completing your away rotations during early 4th year. So if she hadn't done any sub-internships or away rotations in any specialty, that also would be an indicator, probably not super serious about a residency pathway.
And I was like, oh, I was assuming that that token was for applying to residency and I'm not applying. And then they're like, oh, we didn't know that you were applying. Why?
Yeah, you could probably be a little bit more direct with your admin and your deans and such, so they're not surprised like that. Not the end of the world, but just a nice courtesy.
Well, I started this business before med school, and then I was always planning to do both and run my business alongside residency. But turns out I'm most passionate about the business. And so ultimately, like I've been, I've known for a handful of months, but didn't really know like how to tell you guys. So never really said anything. But yeah, I've known for a while. And
yeah, as soon as you know something like that, it's really nice to share that with, whether it's in med school or if it's your employer or some family and friends, whatever it is. Don't wait until someone finds out. It'll serve you well in life, not just in whether or not you apply to residency, but other areas of your life too.
And haven't really been planning to apply to residency, and they're like, oh, great for you. Yeah, that's how I told my school. Actually, like, I still need to be like, hey, are there any other alumni that haven't went the residency route? Like, I would be curious of what.
Great question.
Residency, to be clear. Like I said, this is not clickbait, but I love med school. I love learning. I like getting super nerdy about standardized exams. I like knowing this knowledge.
I can relate.
So there is like, I could see myself in some way, like, but only if it like happens super naturally, like, which I feel like it probably will, is me using this in some way, somehow. I don't know what that looks like. Like, I don't want to be a medical consultant. I don't want to be like, I am interested in law school. I love school, but I've been saying like at least 2 years after graduation, no school, because I really want to go to MBA school. And I am so curious about law school. But again, like law school, don't want a job. Can you, anyway, so No, Maggie. No, not yet.
I had many conversations with mentors about whether or not to get an MBA. If you want to work in corporate, you're working for someone else, and you want to climb the ladder quicker and be qualified, MBA makes a lot of sense. And that's totally valid. And you're going to network with great people and you're going to have these connections. It's awesome. A couple of my buddies went to some great business schools and I've met some of their colleagues, really fantastic guys. And it's great. They're now close friends and that networking has advantages. But if your goal is to work for yourself, what many of my mentors said, and what I agree with, is that an MBA is too large of an opportunity cost and you're better off just learning by doing business.
And I've been like Googling things, and venture capitalism is one that physician I talked to for my business elective mentioned. And and I talked to another orthopedic surgeon who like loved venture capitalism. Not for me. Not interested in the slightest.
I think venture capital is really cool. Venture capital or VC and angel investing and such, getting involved with startups because startups are exciting. There's so much possibility and new ideas and new solutions. That is something that I've dabbled with on the side.
Yeah, we're at the 2 week of med school, or the 2 week time frame where like I'm telling like the whole world. So I tell people on Instagram, tell my school and then classmates. So when you go back to campus during ERA season, everybody is like, what specialty are you applying into? What specialty do you apply to? Anytime I did a Q&A on Instagram, it's like, what specialty are you applying into? So like for earlier in the year, I was just like ignoring those questions. And then later in the year, I was like, bam, that's when those 2 weeks is when I told it, like actually answered that Q&A. And then when my classmates asked it, I was just like, yeah, so I have this business. And they're like, oh, that's so cool. And so, yeah, it was like honestly so fun to like finally tell everybody. It's not like it was a secret for a specific reason. It was more like, well, I wasn't around. You're not around classmates during fourth year. You're all doing your own thing. So I wasn't around school. I wasn't around classmates. I didn't want to share it on social media before my school knew. And then within that 2 weeks, I just told all those people, and it was so fun to get to talk about my business that often because I kind of like, I purposely like keep it on the down low. Like, I don't care if people know that I have this social media and my business. And there's actually like a surprisingly high amount of my classmates that already know about my social media and I didn't know they know. And they'll be like, oh yeah, your social media. I'm like, how do you know? I don't say anything about it.
Dude, back when I was in residency, you got to remember social media and being in medicine was not nearly as accepted as it is today. There was the Strive to Fit, Jane and JD, Doc Osseray, and that was it. And then I joined after they had already been doing their thing. And I went into surgery, right? Which is a lot less tolerant of having side hustles. And back then I went by Jay. It was an anonymous YouTube channel, Med School Insiders. I'd never showed my face. Or maybe I did show my face, I guess, fall of residency, where I started this channel. It was called, I just had like these random like rambly videos. I'd be like driving and I'd use a GoPro, or I'd be walking with my iPhone or something. And one of my co-residents who was not so chill brought it up during my intern year that, oh yeah, Kevin, you have a YouTube channel. I was like, what the, how does this person know? And yeah, I think now things are luckily a lot more accepted, widely accepted. A lot of attending physicians and residents and med students and everything in between are on social media. But I remember at that time, once they found out, I had to be extra hardcore and diligent to make sure that no one could ever critique me on not being on top of my surgical skills, my clinical knowledge, my test results, because then they would just point to, hey, you're doing this thing on the side. That's the reason why. I had to really be on top of my game.
So it's not that I care that people know. It's like, I think it's kind of cool to be able to DM and be like, have this big following and like nobody even knows, like coming at you from the something like, thing like sneak attack, like you didn't even know. I don't know. I just think that's cool. So like I keep it very much on the DL. I don't usually talk about it at all on campus at school unless like my friends knew about it in some other way, and then I talk about it with just those people that I know. But for these 2 weeks, I was just telling everybody about my business, and it was actually really fun. Plans after graduation. So obviously I have not applied to residency. That is done. My classmates are currently in like their interview season and stuff, and holy moly, residency seems so complicated with like the signaling and the geographic and the tokens and
the token is just when you apply, you get a token to apply. That's not really anything noteworthy at all. But creating a rank list is very nerve-wracking because this is your future getting locked in. and strategizing as to which interviews to do, especially if it's a smaller specialty and there are few interview dates available. What conflicts with what, because a lot of interview dates do conflict, but you want to find the ones that conflict with programs that you would be less excited to match into, because you might get an interview invite from another program that does conflict on that other day. And there's all this strategy involved, which, by the way, we go through in our interview course, but it can still be a fun process too.
So all my classmates are in interview season. I have 2 more like intense electives. Otherwise, I'm just trying to fill it up with like pretty easy electives. I have a 4-week AI, which I actually decided to do maternal fetal medicine, which terrifies me, but also excites me because OB was obviously my favorite.
Wait, I thought you said you didn't want to do OB.
I'm in this Foundations of Doctoring elective where I just have to work with my preceptor for 48 hours over a whole semester. So like by the end of the year. And I have the coolest preceptor ever. She's a PM&R doc, so physical medicine and rehabilitation.
If you have no idea what that is, check out So You Want to Be a PM&R doc.
And she works at sports med clinic or in both sports med clinic / like pain clinics. And I get to like do procedures with her. And like we have the like whole like lead get up for the fluoroscopy x-ray things while she's doing the spine procedures.
Fluoroscopy is real-time x-ray. So you're going to see, rather than just an image, you're going to see a video of the x-ray stream.
So that's what the rest of my like just like meeting my graduation requirements look like. I haven't asked if I have to do the residency boot camp, which apparently they're like, this is actually really rigorous and we want to prepare you to be the best residents in the country. And I'm like, And then I picked family medicine, which now I'm like, I don't really want to do that for family medicine. I should have picked surgery or OB, but I guess maybe it'll be fun. I don't know.
Dude, all these people that are quitting always have these little moments in their video where they talk about surgery being the best and being the most fun. And I agree.
Anyway, I don't know if I technically have to do it because I haven't asked, but I'm scared to know what the alternative would be anyway. Like I'd have to do something. And so like, I don't know. I don't want to sit on like I have truly genuinely enjoyed med school. So like, I'm not really trying to get out of the residency boot camp.
I feel like a weirdo when I say the same thing, that I actually very much enjoyed med school, because if you were to go to Reddit or interact with, I guess, any community of med students online, much of it is complaining and cynicism and this is terrible and all those things, which I think is more just a function of online communities, because I also am a huge car enthusiast, in case you can't already tell. And I do car reviews and I drive cars on the track and I teach people how to drive on the track. And I have so much fun there. In real life, people love cars. And then you go online, same story, where people just are complaining about newer cars not being as good as older cars, and EVs are this, and ICE, you know, the internal combustion engine is way better in this way, and cars are too expensive, and all valid points, but we don't have to be so negative.
My 5-year vision is living in the Midwest where there's low cost of living. We have at least 10 acres, 2 horses, and I actually like literally made a 5-year vision board, and I forced George to put pictures on it. So he has like a boat on there, and like, what else did he put on there? I think he made me put like one that has like a picture of a 4-wheeler in it. I can't remember his contributions, but so that is like my / kind of his forced 5-year vision.
I'm not opposed to having 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plans, but just don't hold on to them too tightly, because other things will happen in your life and you don't want to be too rigid about that. You want to go with the flow and be flexible and adaptable when necessary. My life looks way different now than I would have predicted 5-6 years ago, right? And if I was too rigid about that, then I would have probably not made certain decisions that I'm very glad I made today. But on the flip side, having some vision for the future gives you a direction, a purpose, and something to work toward. So I understand it, and I appreciate it and respect it and do some kind of version myself. But I'm very careful to be quite loose with it and not adhere to it too strictly. But that also is partially just my personality type, which is that when I have self-imposed rigid rules or expectations, I tend to follow them too closely rather than being more flexible. So that's kind of a personal thing too.
And just owning this 7-figure business with a 60% profit margin, a small team, so 10 or less, like 10 at most. Actually, 9 would be the perfect number, because then we're not even getting into double digits.
That's such an arbitrary thing. There are benefits to having a larger versus smaller team. So larger team, generally you can outsource more and you do less yourself. Downside is that you have to manage a team and there's more complexity with hiring people and occasionally having to fire people. Pros and cons, it also depends on your business style and business design. I know one buddy who created a business. He did have a customer support employee that was part-time that he let go of, but it's a SaaS, a software as a service, and it just kind of runs itself. That's a very ideal situation to be in, where you essentially delegate to the computer, so you don't need a big team to delegate, and you also have no complexity with managing people. So the best of both worlds. But anyways, pros and cons to different things. Don't be too rigid with what you want. Like the whole 9 versus 10 thing, very arbitrary, right?
2025 is my year to make 500K. You know, we learned a lot this year of what worked and what didn't, and hopefully we'll hit that goal next year, especially with being more on track with Mediavine, affiliate, the blog has more traffic. So, and like I said, like there was this one training where we literally said, it was a training for how to scale to 500K, and all 4 examples that she used in Momentum, all 4 of them had really high ticket offers, or this person did like 50 in-person speaking events or something, and like that's not scalable. So like that's why I'm like, okay, we need a high ticket offer. How am I going to do that? So I think that's like a key to getting to the 500K mark for me. And then we're also starting ads, but having somebody do it for me is really expensive. And like, that's, but anyway.
And then you're going to learn that you have to invest in your business if you want it to grow. And that means with profits that you would otherwise take out of the business, you reinvest them, right? With someone who's hopefully very good managing your ads, because there are a lot of people who are not very good that will offer to manage your ads. And hiring people or even paying for courses, right, is investing in yourself and your education. And I've taken many courses myself to help build that skill set, become better at whatever it is I'm trying to work on in that moment. It's doing that investment in yourself.
And with a minimum of 30K months. So that's like a specific like thing to that goal is like, we always have dips in the summer, and then I spend like I make 23,000 every month, which in January and February I did, but then we have those dips and I'm like screwed. So I'm not like, you know, I gotta learn to, you know, there's some things I need to learn still as a business owner.
Live below your means, especially in entrepreneurship, because income is not going to be as consistent. And then you won't find yourself fretting and being stressed and anxious that you're spending too much. And, you know, living off of 23K per month, I'm not sure if she's spending all of that. It sounds like she's spending most of it where she doesn't have a cushion. It's a lot to be living off of. So kudos to Maggie for being so open and honest and vulnerable. But part of me thinks she might grow to regret this decision because, first of all, it's a big decision and it's hard to undo. It's hard to go back to residency after you've taken many years off from med school and you never went into any residency to begin with. And you also weren't really preparing yourself for residency because you made that decision a year plus in advance to not be prepared for residency and so on. So if she were to change her mind in the future and go back, it would be an uphill battle. She could definitely do it for certain specialties, but her options would be limited. So if it is just a temporary state and she's making such a big decision, I hope she doesn't regret it in the future, because what seems very much, and I've alluded to this earlier in the video, but what seems very underemphasized, underappreciated is how her business is not likely to continue to grow and do well. First of all, she's made it quite clear that she's more interested in her bottom line in making money more so than actually benefiting pre-meds and med students. Number 2, she doesn't really have the credentials to be serving as the expert. She took multiple times to get into med school, took multiple MCAT retakes, wasn't a top student clearly in medical school, and to then be the mentor figure that's going to, hey, I'm going to help you do the process. Why would a student want to learn from someone that struggled and barely went through the process in the first place? I do believe that is a huge part of why Med School Insiders is as big as it is and grew as quickly as it did, because from the get-go, from that very first video that had garbage production quality that you can still watch from 2016, the quality of the content is top tier. And it's, I mean, you just can't argue with that. And there are many people who are building from what we said way back then and building and adding to that because that stuff works. No one's really coming and saying, hey, this stuff I don't agree with, it doesn't work. That's not true. This is the most effective stuff and it worked. And we even have these different ways of approaching how many schools to apply to, your med school application narrative, the whole cohesive story that other people just aren't emphasizing, the cost benefit analysis, there's so many different things that we're doing differently from how regular blogs and college advisors and these less experienced, less qualified people are talking about it, because if you're not operating at the highest level, you simply have a more rudimentary understanding. If I want to be the best tennis player I can be, I mean, sure, Joe Schmo from across the street that has more tennis experience than me is going to be able to teach me up to a certain point, but then to surpass him and to be a top candidate, to be the best that I can be, I need to learn from a top tennis player. Give me the pros who are really going to elevate me beyond that. And the same thing applies here. You can't be an expert on something that you aren't actually excelling at. If you are the C player, how can you be the expert in the field when other people don't want to be C players? They want to be A players. And this is one of the things that, looking back, I'm so grateful for. but I can only connect the dots looking back. In the moment, as a pre-med, I was just die hard. I want to be the best doctor I can be. And I was so motivated. I was so driven by this illness and wanting to be the best doctor because I felt like I had bad doctors. I was like, the world needs more doctors. These kids with GI illness need me to be the best doctor I can be because these people that were taking care of me did not meet the mark. I did eventually find some great gastroenterologists, but I had that fire inside. And then same in med school, I was so motivated and driven. And only after all that, I look back and say, oh my God, I'm so grateful that I tried so hard because it gave me the skill set to then create Med School Insiders and then have a team of people who then follow my methodologies, and we now scale and we help thousands of people every year, and we have these amazing results because we've actually built on this experience and this expertise by having top level results. So that's the biggest thing. I just don't see a future where she can build an audience, considering she's no longer in medicine at all, she's left, and she wasn't an expert in getting into med school or to excelling during med school or obviously into getting into a good residency. So when you have removed yourself from the situation entirely in that way, it's hard to be relevant, it's hard to gain a following, it's hard to make a connection with others. And then also, if you're so driven by just money rather than value, I get it. I've been in a position where financial strain caused so much pain. I made a promise to myself when I was it was either late teens or early 20s. It was my late teens. I had just been diagnosed with IBD. I was living in that one bedroom with my mom and my brother, and we all shared that one bathroom. And I remember being in so much pain. Again, IBD, not well controlled, the urgency, the pain, I remember promising myself, I am going to buy a place where I do not have to share a bathroom with someone. That is a goal of mine. And then before I got this house, I was renting a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment with a friend, and I had my own bathroom. He had his own bathroom. I was happy, So I get how money can help there. But again, things are not black and white. And I hate when people go so black and white, because to vilify her and say, hey, she's too money obsessed, I agree. But I also don't want to say that money doesn't matter, because there are people that believe this make-believe with this super insufferable virtue signaling that they're going into medicine
because they don't care about the money at all, and I just want to help people. And
dude, you can want to help people. I was so driven to become that pediatric gastroenterologist until I did my pediatric gastroenterology research in med school, realized it wasn't for me because parents are really difficult, even though I love the kids. And you can do that and also want to make a good living. They're not mutually exclusive. So the truth, the nuance is oftentimes in the middle. That's for most things in life. The truth is in the middle somewhere. But speaking to the gray is just challenging. So people don't want to do it. Maggie, in terms of this range, I think she's a little bit too money-minded, right? I think that she focuses so much on her bottom line that it's off-putting, it alienates people, and ultimately she's not going to have the level of life satisfaction that you get when you have a purpose and you feel like you're helping and providing value and bringing other people up. Because then you feel good about yourself. You look back. I mean, recently it was my birthday, and I did an AMA, which by the way is coming out soon. And I get very reflective during these times. And one of the things I was so grateful for is that through this work, I feel like I've made a great impact. I get a ton of messages every month from students saying how their studying has been transformed, or they got into med school, or they got into their dream residency. And it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm contributing to my society, my community, my culture, medicine at large in the US, and helping create, our mission statement is creating a generation of happier, healthier, more effective future doctors. And I think when you have better doctors in the end, patients benefit too. And I like to think that with this current path I'm on, I'm actually making a bigger impact in the world than I ever would have as a plastic surgeon. That's one of the reasons why I chose this path. I think there is a bigger opportunity for impact in that way. And you can feel free to disagree with me. That's fine. We can have different opinions. It's my life, not yours. But I don't see as much focus there on providing value. I see a lot of focus on just the bottom line. And while I understand the importance of money, I'm not going to say money doesn't matter, because guess what? If being a doctor paid only $20K per year, none of you guys would be doing it, right? It's not just about the job. It's about, you want to be compensated fairly and you want meaningful work. You want both. And trying to balance them is the secret. I think if you go too far in one extreme, if you go too far in I just want to help people, I don't care about money, you're just being dishonest and you're a virtue signaler, or you're just so young and inexperienced, and maybe you come from a level of comfort that you don't have to worry about money. If so, awesome, and kudos to your parents for having you grow up in that kind of situation where money is not a stressor and an issue. But on the other hand, if you do just focus on money and don't care at all about providing value, that is a very dangerous path to go down because you'll always feel like you don't have enough and you're not going to have the same level of meaning in your life. But again, that being said, I want to at least appreciate Maggie for her honesty. But now let's dive to the Reddit comments. I go to her school, not in her class, and to be honest, the whole thing is kind of ridiculous. The whole, oh, I didn't get a research year in Vail and I didn't want to do it in Denver, while not doing ortho research and wanting to apply ortho seems kind of like a weird line of thinking. Bit overconfident, also a bit fickle and impulsive with her decision making. A lot of them initially become influencers to document their passion for medicine, but then eventually realize they've mostly been tolerating medicine and are more fulfilled pursuing content creation and business. And this person replied, it's totally fine to wake up one day and realize that you're not into something anymore and that other things are grabbing your interest. Of course, it's easier to make that pivot if you have the resources to sustain your lifestyle. Yeah, we did a reaction video with another content creator recently who quit, and the resources was a huge part of why he was able to do so, but it wasn't disclosed in the video, which is why I do have issues with this video by It's Life by Maggie, but I do want to again just applaud her for being more open since it's something that does need more attention. And the other thing I want to highlight here is those who are not in content creation tend to overestimate how easy it is to be a content creator, to make decent income, to be consistent and reliable with that income, because guess what? The algorithm and just relevancy changes with time. So just keep in mind that it's probably not as easy as you think. And even in the last year or two, you've seen a ton of these creators who have quit or have massively reduced their frequency because they feel burned out. Each position, each career can have its ups and downs. And I'm not trying to say that content creator is just as hard as being a doctor. That's not what I'm saying. But it's probably not as easy as you think. I remember this girl, her whole shtick was persevering through the difficulty of needing to retake the MCAT and go through multiple cycles before getting in. It seems pretty silly to endure all that only to quit after graduating medical school. Yeah, it is weird to quit, but I mean, that's more just sunk cost fallacy, and your priorities and things can change. Although again, it looked like her goal going in was much less about, hey, I want to practice, and it was much more from a business kind of perspective. Even if she was going to go into ortho, she wanted to teach other people how to do ortho private practice and have a course there and whatever. But the thing here that sticks out the most to me is, again, multiple MCAT retakes, applying multiple cycles before getting in. You're not an expert, and how are you going to position yourself as an expert to help others get in? If you're C-level or mid-level, people are not going to be able to exceed you because you cannot teach them how to go be a top tier, right? Only by being top tier can you then teach people the tactics that got you there. And you're going to do things differently than the B level, the C level, the D level people, right? So I'm weird in the sense that at Med School Insiders, I often advise people to apply to 30 plus medical schools. And people are like, why? The average is 15 to 20. That's just excess work and excess money. And that's because they aren't thinking about it right. There is a cost benefit analysis and an asymmetric risk profile that only once you have first gotten excellent results yourself and secondly worked with hundreds or thousands of students to further refine your processes, then you create these systems that are unique to you and your way of doing things because you're now thinking at a higher level. So it's just weird to me feeling qualified to do this when you're clearly not an expert. In other words, if I go across the street and I find a PCP who graduated medical school 50 years ago and the entire process was different, he hasn't helped anyone from back then until now get into med school. He wasn't a top tier candidate himself, and he, barely got into med school, had to try multiple times, then barely got into whatever residency specialty, and he wasn't a top candidate, and yada, yada, yada. Then how the hell is he going to help me match into plastic surgery or into neurosurgery or just match to a top tier internal medicine residency or get into a top tier medical school overall? It just doesn't make sense. Okay, I like this comment from Caffeine Dio a lot. People like her usually have a family safety net, so they don't feel the same burn most of us would if we just decided to quit. Totally spot on. We know with Zach Kiley, obviously. With her, I doubt that she has the same level of parachute as Zach Kiley, but connecting the dots a little bit, for her to be able to take on a $20,000 course, credit card debt, and just having that credit line probably indicates that there was some level of safety net prior. And the whole path of least resistance, yeah, I totally understand that point. But keep in mind though, not everyone who quits necessarily has this path of least resistance. I would argue that my path was actually much more resistance because I didn't have any family support other than my mom saying, hey, you can come crash with me while you figure your shit out, which again, I am very appreciative of. But there was much more resistance there because, I had started these YouTube videos with a $16 Amazon tripod. I'm drawing on a piece of paper and you guys told me that my handwriting sucked. And taking on that risk and trying to build something is more resistance. But for some of us, at least for me, it was a matter of lifestyle design. It's not that I hated plastics, but when I was operating, even as a first year, I was getting to flow states, as I've talked about with that, doing half a blepharoplasty. And it's not even about hating something. It's more about when you look back, when you're 40, 50, 60, 70 years old and you look back on your life, what is going to make you happy, or which one are you going to have less regret with, right? The whole Jeff Bezos regret minimization framework, or like the rocking chair test. When you look back at your life, what are you going to be happiest with? I would rather bet on myself, try to build these businesses, and then fail rather than doing the safe path and always wondering what if. I actually remember talking to a co-resident and saying, you know what? I have these projections. I think it's going to work out. I think I'm going to do well, because I had minimized the risk by having some level of business momentum, not just with Med School Insiders, but with the other things I had done before too. I was like, dude, I love this business stuff. It's a lot of fun. I feel so alive, and it aligns with my desire for freedom and my desire for impact. And I told him my rough numbers, but I also told him, you know what? Even if I make only $100K a year, which I know is good money, but compared to what a plastic surgeon makes, I said, even if I were to make $100K a year, I'd still be okay with that. I'd still be happy. And I think the most important thing here is to do what is true to yourself. It was so much resistance to make that video, because I was one of, if not the first med tuber to quit openly on YouTube. And you don't know how people are going to respond, because a lot of people in the industry, they're so anti, especially back then when social media wasn't as widespread. I knew I was going to get pushback, but I also knew it was more important to live true to myself than to worry about what other people thought of me, especially close friends and family. Of course, I'm going to value their opinion and weigh their advice. I may not always listen to them, but I'm going to take them seriously. But the strangers that are just going to be haters, like, who cares, man? And a lot of people feel so much resistance there. And we talk about that actually quite a bit in the Zach Hiley video. Their life, their choice. My God, what a radical concept on Reddit of all places. Being an influencer should be an automatic rejection, in my opinion. Haters being haters. I mean, not every influencer quits. Yes, a higher percentage of them do. Is that because they have this thing that allows them to take on different opportunities, or is it because the person who goes into content creation is also more entrepreneurial at baseline? Because remember, before content creation, people were still quitting. But it's a really stupid take to say it's an automatic rejection. These whole black and white blanket kind of policies just screams, I'm not an intelligent or serious thinker, and do not listen to me. That's exactly what it says. Just think about Sean Anderson, who has no plans on quitting. I've spoken to him about this. And he is going to be an amazing physician. He already is providing so much value to the community with his content. So you would want to reject him from med school just because he creates content? Stupid take. All right, so this person is saying she just wants the money to be an influencer, and this guy is saying, who cares, we all want the check. Most people wouldn't endure training if not for a fat check at the end. Virtue signaling. And again, there's a balance here that I spoke about earlier in the video. It's not all money. It's not all, I don't care about the money. Money does matter, but it's not the only thing. And I do think that she overweights the importance of money. And if you do just care about money, you can do other content creation or entrepreneurial businesses without going to med school and spending 4 years of your life, plus the time it takes to get into med school in the first place. Or you can go into finance and whatever. Those are other ways to make good, if not even better money. Many people who go into medicine, first of all, they're risk averse, so they don't want to take on the high risk of content creation and such. So essentially they want that good, solid income, but they also want some meaning to their life. And becoming a finance bro and just clocking in and clocking out just for the sake of money, for money's sake, I know I can speak for myself here at least, would feel empty and wouldn't be happy with that kind of career. The field needs 100% of your time and commitment. Playing influencer will only take you so far. Yeah, this is more of the old school kind of take. I don't agree with this, and I think most reasonable people would also strongly disagree with this. This sounds like that one neurosurgeon I did a reaction video to, where that video where he was like, you all need to be more humble, and he himself was being incredibly not humble. But medicine does require a lot of attention and dedication, but taking 100% of your time is just such a toxic way. It's like the whole medicine is a calling, therefore sacrifice everything about yourself, your personality, your hobbies, your family, your life, all these things for the sake of medicine, which isn't healthy, sustainable, and is not helping the burnout and depression epidemic amongst medical trainees. You need to find a balance, and what I would actually argue is you need to approach life with intensity if you want to make the most of it. I started doing that even as a pre-med. I was very hardcore as a student, but guess what? I also was on a competitive dance team traveling all across Canada and the US, competing in dance shows. We also hosted our own annual dance show in LA, and I was the lead designer that had, my own little team under me as part of that group. I did guitar classes in college. I did some research. Also in med school, I got involved with I actually helped found various interest groups that were related to entrepreneurship and cutting edge technology in medicine, and then started Blue Link, this biomedical incubator that wasn't giving me class credit, but I was pursuing a passion project, and that opened doors and gave me other experience when it came to entrepreneurship in the future. And I met some really amazing people at various institutions from doing so. I was very hardcore as a pre-med and very hardcore as a med student, and doing these other things didn't detract from that. It actually enriched the experience and gave me a more multifaceted, more balanced approach to being a person, being a human, that then in the future opened additional doors for me. And then even in med school, like, you're a multifaceted person. Don't let anyone tell you that you can only do medicine and doing anything else on the side, whether it's content creation or other hobbies. Like, I'm clearly very much into cars, as you can see from my car YouTube channel as well. And even in med school, I got involved in autocross. I had a super cheap Scion FRS, and autocross is incredibly affordable. It's like $40 per event, and it doesn't put much wear and tear on your car. It's a great way to start if you eventually want to do track days and racing and such. So I started off in med school doing that, and I loved it. And did it take away from my academic success or rigors or research and whatever? No, of course not. It's like one weekend every few months. Not even a full weekend, just like half a day every few months. And the thing that bothers me the most about people who say the field needs 100% of your time and commitment is, guess what? Those people are not giving the field 100% of their time and commitment, because they just probably suck at time management, and they come home and their relaxation is like Netflix and lounging around and whatever. I think that if you're able to be an amazing clinician or a top student and do other things on the side, that doesn't mean you're not committed. It just means you're way better at time management and intensity and learning and all these things. Like, to be top student, top results, top marks, and also have content creation on the side and also do these other things, kudos to you. But for Maggie, not a top student, not top marks, not top results, that's a different story. I just don't think she's an expert to be teaching other people. Yes, you need to put in substantial effort and time, but you don't need it to dominate your life. Sounds like you enjoy off-roading. I love that. So for those who don't know, road is radiology, ophthalmology, anesthesiology, and dermatology, the lifestyle specialties. And I would also say that those who have entrepreneurial pursuits outside of medicine tend to go into like anesthesiology or family med or emergency medicine, these specialties that give you more time outside of being a clinician. Dude, this is so true. Redditors are a bunch of hypocrites. All they do is talk about how they wish they could quit medicine, but they're in too much debt. But the moment they see someone who can quit and is doing exactly what they wish they could do, they suddenly get on the attack mode and talk about how she's not committed like they are. That is very much an ironic and true take. I would argue that there is a little bit more nuance to the pushback that Maggie is seeing on this video, but this guy is also not wrong. There's just so much cynicism online, especially on Reddit and these anonymous communities. My friends, let me know what you think with a comment below.